right? And then you just browse for it. Okay, so this is it right here, where I have it. And then after you do that, then you just, do next. And that's how you install it, okay? Um, okay, so today, what we'll do is we'll go through geometry, because no matter what kind of things you do, like we talked about before, you'll need to start off with some kind of geometry because you're dealing with PDEs. So you have your subdomain. You have to choose what your subdomain will be, right? And then you have your boundary conditions. And then for your geometry, then you select what kind of boundary conditions you have. So we'll talk about geometry and in 2D, and then also in 3D, how to do that. So, and we'll do it on both types of consoles. All right, so, look at that showing. All right, so let's start off with the easy one first. Okay, so now we're not going to do any, we can do some physics right now, but right now we'll just do geometry. Okay, so let's start off with some geometry that will eventually extrude it to 3D. So I'm going to choose 3D. I'm not going to choose any of the physics, but I'll just say okay. I can come back and add physics later. So it starts off like this. And as you can see, if you click on multi-physics, there's nothing there, right? If you click on the model navigator, it takes you back here, and then you can click on some physics, and it'll add it there. So there's no equations, no physics equations in here. But let's look at some geometry. So for geometry, it's in 3D. And so, for example, I could click on this 3D block right here, and it has some parameters right here. Everything is in terms of meters, right? The meter scale. And so is this a block with X, Y, and Z at 1? Here's the axis base point, and that's at the corner, and it's the solid. So if I just say apply, it makes this right here, okay? So this right here is what I just created. Now I could double click on that, or oops. Let me get off of that. Let me delete this right here and try another one. So let's say I want to define this a little differently. Let's say I want it to be 100 meters by 10 by 1. And then I apply. Then I have this right here. Okay. So I can change my shapes around that way. Now that's if you want to build things in 3D, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I think what people will do mostly is start off with 2D and then turn that into 3D. And so that's a little more interesting. So how you do that is you go to the draw, and they have things there. We just did block, but you could come down here and go to these work planes, okay? And so if you say okay, it'll put a work plane in X, Y, and then here it is here. So this right here is some geometry, but it's only 2D. This geometry 1 is in 3D. And when we do it in 5.5, you'll see where those things are there too, okay? But in version 3, it's in tabs. Okay, so let me go here and make some axis grid settings. Okay, so let's do some typical micrometer settings. Just, I'm just used to that, right? And put everything at 2 microns apart. Oh, and the reason I'm putting E negative 5 is because it's like 0.2. So I could just put 2E negative 6. Okay, so make it visible, labels. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, so you guys can see those dots. Okay, great. All right, so let's say I wanted to make something like this. So I just clicked on the rectangle. I made this shape here. And then if I want to extrude it to 3D, then I would go to my draw, and then I go down to extrude, okay? And then it'll ask me what distance, okay? I could also do some displacements as well. But let's just say I wanted to extrude 5 microns, okay? And I click OK. So this is what it looks like in the Geometry tab. So remember, this is Geometry 2. It's only 3D. Here is Geometry 1. Instead of the 2D, it's the 3D version, right? And it has been extruded right here. This is 5 microns right here. Okay. So that's how to do extrusion. Now let's do something a little more complex. Let's say I want to do this. I could change it like this. Let's say I want to do an array of these things. So here's some array. Here's an array. Here's a mirror. Here's I can move things around. I can rotate it. Okay, and I'll do those things. I can also scale it as well. Scaling is kind of interesting too, because sometimes you'll create a geometry, and some of the physics, like we talked about before, it really depends on scale. If you're doing something in the meter scale versus the micro scale, it looks exactly the same if you look at the geometry with respect to all the dimensions, but some of the forces or the efforts at one scale are very important, others are negligible. Then when you shrink it down, it becomes flipped, where some things become negligible, other things very important. Like in the microscale, well, in the meter scale, gravity is really important, but in the microscale, it's not. And a lot of people, when they do their calculations by hand, they totally ignore gravity because its effect is so small, right? So those are kind of things you want to check out, how things scale with dimension. Okay, but let's say I want to rotate something. So I click on the rotate button, and I can rotate like, I don't know, 30 degrees, like that. And so you could get things to rotate. I could do Control Z to get back to undo that. I can do an array. So for this array right here, let's do, here's the X and Y displacements. Here's the array size. So for example, if I want this thing right here, so here's 2, 2, and 2. The whole thing is 6 microns. So let's say I want this whole thing to displace up. How about like in the Y direction, I don't know, 12 microns? And in this direction right here, I think that was 100 microns. So let's say I want to do 110. And then let's do an array in the X direction. Let's say I want to do 3 in that direction, and I want to do 6 or 8 in the other direction, right? So we get something like this. Oh, see, there's a little overlap, so I was a little wrong about the, let me try that again. So let's do an array. We'll do, let's try 140 microns for the displacement in the X direction. 12 was good in the Y direction. And for X, let's do 3, and we'll do 8 again. Oh man, I forgot to select it. Yeah, don't forget that. Don't forget to select. In the X, I'll do 3. So remember, when I'm saying 3 here, I'm going to have 3 in the X direction, this direction. I'm going to have 8 going in that direction. So I'll have 24 altogether. At least that's the idea. Yeah. So here we go. See that? Now remember, that's all 2D. Okay? And if I want to extrude that, I have to highlight everything. You can do Control A to highlight, or you can come up here and get the selector tool, or the wait, not the selector tool. Oh yeah, this pointer here, and then just select the ones you want to highlight. And let's say you only want to extrude those, or you want to extrude, all of them. So you highlight the ones you want. You go to Draw, then you extrude, and let's say you just want to do 2 microns, and say OK. It'll take a little longer, but here you go. Okay, so all of those were extruded into 3D, and then this is where you apply your boundaries, your subdomains, okay, and your physics. Okay, so again, you're just drawing here to start to create your geometry. You're not doing any physics with this, so this is temporary. You could select a few of these right here and delete them if you don't like them, right? But this is the geometry you're dealing with. Let me do Control A and select all. Now let's do some Boolean kind of stuff. Okay, so let's say you want to sort of like, cut out something. So here's some shape right here that you want to subtract out of these things right here. Okay, so what you do is this. As you can see, here's some sort of like Venn type of diagrams right here for some Boolean operations. So what you can do is this. You can just go into here, plus and minus, and it's probably a whole lot easier when you create a composite object. And you can add some and subtract another. Okay, so this object right here is called E1. See this E1 right here? So what you could do is, all of these are R1. Here's R24, here's R51, and here's a formula. And you could create your own formula. Okay? So that's basically the entire formula. E1's at the very end, that's the order. I'm going to subtract E1 instead of add it. Okay, so I'm going to backspace and change that plus to a minus. You guys see that? I changed that to a minus. So what this is going to do is take all this geometry and subtract this geometry away from it. Okay? And so when I say OK, that's what I'm left with. So you can see the benefit of this, where you can use these basic fundamental shapes here and then create some interesting geometries that are composites of those, just by doing some Boolean arithmetic. Okay, and of course you can extrude to 3D. So let's do that real quick. Okay, see? Oh, and also when you're in 3D, you could change the lighting of things. So here's like headlamp. This right here is different type of lighting. You could change the camera position, things like that. You can also do transparent things. You can change the perspective. Like this is just orthographic. This right here is perspective projection. And the difference between the two is like when you have it like this, things that are further away appear smaller. Things that are closer to you appear larger, right? If it's like this, it's just all collimated, the image that gets to you. Okay, so it's hard to tell sometimes which is in the back and which is in the forefront. If it's like this, it's a little more easier to tell. Okay. They also have these options where you can quickly get to certain positions, like this is some default XYZ. This right here is ZX. Oh, see this? it's in this perspective type of thing here. If you go like this, then it's not. You see the difference? So you can rotate it around like that, but it lines it up perfectly. This right here is sort of like this angle kind of view. It gives some perspective. Here's XY just flat on. That's perspective. Here is orthographic. Okay, so you can see the difference between those. Okay. And again, if you want to select a few of these, you can, and to delete them. Oh, let me say this. When we did our extrusion from here, and we added up all the geometries when we did our Boolean in here, what we did, we made a composite type of geometry. So it's called CO1. So when we go to the 3D and we just click on one doesn't highlight. The entire thing highlights. It treats it as one object. Okay? If you want to break it up, you can go to this, I think this stick of dynamite. Right? If you go to stick of dynamite, I think it splits everything up. Yeah, see now it's all separate composite objects. Now I can click on one. Do you see the difference? I click on one and I can get rid of it if I want to. Or I could click on one and choose some different physics for that subdomain and a different one for that subdomain, or something entirely different, right? If I want to put everything back together, I can Control A, Control All, and then just do my union, which is the same thing as going in here and see everything is selected, right? I can Control All and then just say OK. Now the whole thing is back to just being one object, composite object 22. And I can no longer select just one piece. The whole thing is now considered as one thing. Okay, so that's how you do it. You can explode it back if you want it, split up, or you can, do other things. Another nice thing to do with this is this. So let's try to do something like this. Let's create another piece right here. And let's rotate a little bit to get a little fancy. It's in degrees. Okay, so I'm going to move it right to here. And you can move things around. And what I'll do is I'll extrude that, and then I'll subtract it, okay, in the 3D version. I mean, the 3D domain. So let's first extrude it. Instead of extruding it to like 2e-5, let's extrude it just 1, like halfway. And that's going to extrude, in upper direction. Okay, so now we have this. Okay, see how that is? As you can see, it's not as thick as the other one, right? But it's wedged in there. And so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to subtract it from that. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to say this structure right here minus the one I just made, and that's called ext1. Okay? And it's working on it. And so now, let me turn on some shadowing or whatever. Now the whole thing is cut out. Can you see like where it used to be? And now it's like a piece that's missing. Okay, so that's another benefit of doing extrusion. Like I said, you can do all this in just working in 3D without going through 2D, but it's a whole lot, but it's a lot harder if you do it that way. If you start in 2D, make your objects and extrude them and do some Boolean algebra or Boolean arithmetic, you can make some quite interesting shapes and get the kind of shape you want. Okay. What else I want to say about this? Is there any other interesting thing? Oh, let me just show you how to do mirror. Okay, so let's say I wanted to mirror this object right here. What I would do is I can click on this, and this is the line of reflection. Okay. Now the normal vector right here is x. X is 1 and y is 0. So what that means is x is on this direction and y is 0. So it's going to reflect, I believe this is the vector that's normal to your reflecting plane. So I think that right there is going to reflect it about the y-axis. Okay, so let's see that. This is highlighted. Did it do it? Yeah. Okay, it's going to, okay, so it's reflecting it about the 0. So here's the 0 line right here. So this is the center line that's reflecting about. I could have moved that line, but this is the 0 line. So it took this and it reflected it about this line right here, and that's why it appears way over there. Okay, so that's just an example how to do reflection, because sometimes you want to make one type of structure and you realize, well, the other side looks just like it, so it's a whole lot easier to do your mirror and get the exact geometry. We already looked at rotate. We looked at arrays. We did rotation, scale. Oh, I can show you scale real quick. So for scaling, this is a scale factor. 1 means nothing, right? So let's say I want to scale x by 0.5, okay, and does that. Okay, so here's the new geometry right here, right? Oh, this stuff in blue, this is the projection of geometry 1 onto this geometry. So like if I extrude this, it's going to appear over here in geometry 1. So it's kind of hard to see this, but like if I yeah, so what I mean is this. So here's the 3D version of geometry 1, and if I extrude the other thing, it'll appear over here. So it's giving you some perspective of where the other stuff is that you extruded to. Okay, so it's no longer, I mean, it's no longer in 2D, but it's there in 3D, so you can see it. Yeah. You can also extrude in the other direction. So let me just show you that, for example. So this is extrude. Instead of doing, I'll do negative this time. I'll do -3. Okay, so now it's going to extrude that in the -3 direction. You see how the heights are different? This went up positive 2e -5. This went down -3e -5. You see that? So one's a little thicker than the other one. Okay. Let's see what else. Anything else really interesting? They do have other shapes you can use. You can, yeah, and we'll get to those later. I don't want to bombard you guys with too much of everything, but there's lots of stuff here, and there's some things that I rarely use, so I'm not familiar with, but we'll go through them later. Yeah. Okay. So that's how to do it in COMSOL 3. And again, once you have your geometry, then you select it, and then you go through your physics. You do your subdomain, you do your boundary, and then after you do that, then you equal to show what your result is. Okay. So and we'll do more of that too. Because so recall, every time we do something, we have to build our geometry. So this is just showing you all the kind of things that are available. You guys will get used to it, and you'll be pros at it very soon because, again, we have to use it for everything we create. So now let's try to do something in ComSol 5 and do geometry there. And the same kind of things are available in ComSol 5 plus more stuff, right? So let's go into my office computer. Oh, last time you guys said that there was a few computers that don't have ComSol at all, right? I remember these two don't, right? Are there any other computers that don't have ComSol? Oh, one back there? Okay, let me, wait, I'll just, what number is that? Yeah, what number is that right there? Oh, that's 81? Okay, 81, okay. Yeah, I'll let them know about that because 81 and these two right there. Okay. Alrighty. ComSol 5. So has anyone, has everyone gotten through the flash drives? Huh? Have it got to you yet? No. Okay. Oh, you have an extra one that's ready to go? Okay. Huh? Oh, you need one. Oh, I thought you had an extra. Okay.
Hey, Dr. Clark, this one doesn't have ComSol.
Oh, it does not have ComSol?
I like put it on here.
Uh-huh.
Like when I'm trying to set it up, it needs like admin access.
Okay. And that is 94. Okay. Okay, so let's start doing some geometry. I saw a really cool video of this on YouTube, and I sort of like how they did their geometry. So I'll try to do it sort of like how they did it. Okay. I should have brought my mouse instead of my. Okay. Anyway. Huh? Oh, do you have one? Yeah. Cool. Great. Thank you. Oh, this is fancy. Wow. There's like 10 different buttons on here. Not including these two, actually, the regular buttons. Is it a gamer? A gaming mouse? Okay. Okay, so what I just did is I just clicked on the blank, right? And so so what we'll do here is we'll try to make a structure that looks like this. So we'll do it in 2D, and then we'll extrude it to 3D. So the one I saw on YouTube is some kind of structure that looks like this, and it has some holes in it. But it had like a couple of arrays of holes like that. So, something looks like that. I mean, it's a nice exercise to like explain how it works. Of course, you guys would be making your own type of geometries, but okay. So first, what you do is so remember, in ComSol, there's generally two ways to do things. You have all the stuff up here. Okay, this is like this upper ribbon here. And you could also do like a right click, and you could do things here too. Like for example, we're going to add a component, and we're going to add a component in like 2D and 3D. Okay, but you could also add a component here as well. You see what I'm saying? So whatever way you're used to working is how you can do it. So I'm going to add a 2D component, And then, as you can see, it added this. So let me shrink these back. Okay, so before, this one wasn't here. All I had was your global definitions, and inside of here are your parameters. And we're going to use some parameters, because that's really nice, because if you just use numerical values, and then later on you say, well, I want my geometry to be a little larger or a little smaller, I want to change something about it, it's a whole lot easier to change a parameter than to change, a number, because then you have to go in and do it locally instead of, more globally. The results is right here, but this, when we said add component, this new piece was added, and it's 2D. This 2D thing looks like that. Okay, and we can go in geometry, and we can also go here, and we can add a plane. So let's go into geometry here. Let's see, there's, you could do things like sketch, right? Do rectangles. And here's a plane here. So let's first add a circle. So you go to sketch. So for those of you who are following along, I went to geometry, I went to sketch. I go to circle. And then I could just click and make a circle. Okay, and so what that is going to be is this part of this structure right here. So I'm going to put a circle here. I'm going to put another circle here, and I'm going to make a rectangle like that to make this oval structure. Okay, that's the goal. Okay, and when I made that structure, look what happened to this data structure over here. It's sort of like step by step recording what I'm doing. So it created this line right here that says circle 1. I can delete it if I want to. For example, I could highlight it, I could delete it, and then it's gone. Now I'm back to where I started from. Okay, so let's do the circle again, right there. Now I want to make the circle. So let's do some parameters. So right here, it shows these parameters. Since it's all freehand, you're getting some numbers like this. But let's say I want my radius to follow some parameters. So what I would do, I would go to my global definitions. I would click on my parameters, and then I would name some things here. So let's say I'm going to call this one radius, and the expression is going to be, how about 5 centimeters? When you use units, you have to use brackets, okay? I could put microns, but you have to use brackets, because if you don't use brackets, it just defaults, like I said, to meters. In the COMSOL 3, you have to say 5e negative 2, okay? And here's the value of that. You see this? This is 0.05 meters. I can add a description. This is like just a comment, radius of circle, okay? Or you could leave that description blank, but this is the part that's important. So, so this is my radius parameter. And so now if I go back to my circle, I can now just use radius. Okay? And then I can do build. And now this has the radius of 5 centimeters. I could do zoom extents. That's this one right here. It blows it all up. Or I could zoom out a little bit, like that. Okay? And if I right-click in this area, I can move it around by right-clicking and dragging. All right? Let's also make some parameters for this too, for the base. So let's go back to parameters, and let's add some more. Let's say x0, I can place it anywhere, but let's put it at 0. And y0, okay? So these are just my coordinates right there. And let's go to back to circle. And now, since those things exist, I can put x0 and y0 right here. And that's going to be the center. If I now click on build selected, it's going to shift it to someplace that's not on the screen. So I could zoom out, find out where it is. See, it's way over here now. But as you can see, it's at 0, 0. Okay? Oh, wait. This should be y0. Doesn't make a difference, but yeah, just to be clear. Okay. Now let's create the other part of it. I could just make, let me use my pointer. I could just make another circle down here at the bottom from scratch. But I want to show you guys copy. So what I'll do is I'll take this structure right here and I'll copy it down to here. Okay? So let's try that. So let's go to geometry, and we'll go into transforms, and they have something called copy. As you can see, there's other things. Because remember, we were just in CompSol 3, and we saw the array, we saw mirror, move, rotate. We went through all those in scale. So like I said, CompSol 5, well, CompSol 3 is like a subset of CompSol 5. CompSol 5 has everything in CompSol 3, but a whole lot more. Okay, but so anything you could do in CompSol 3, you can do in CompSol 5. The reverse is not always true. And I don't think, I have to check this, but I don't think if you make something in CompSol 3 and you store it, can you then load it into CompSol 5? I'm not sure about that. Probably if you did something in CompSol 5.4, 5.3, you could do it. But I'm not sure about the really old dinosaur version. Okay, so copy. Once I select copy, you're going to see it appear over here. Remember, it's recording everything we're doing. Okay, so select copy, and now see, it now popped up. First, it was a circle. I can go back and re-edit that, but now the copy thing is done. So if you think about it, when CompSol goes through this, it's like going step by step. It's going to draw the circle. It's going to do whatever I did here, or do whatever I did next. And it's sort of like a sequence of steps, like a scripting file that we're making. Okay? So there's no objects yet. So these are the things that are going to be copied. So if you click on it, it now appears there. That object was labeled C1. Okay, so CompSol has its own type of labeling. This is usually checked. Well, you want to keep this checked because if this is not checked, when you copy it to another location, it'll erase the first one. It's sort of like just move instead of copy. But if you keep it checked, then it'll keep this one checked while you move the next one. We're copies to the next one. So for this, let's say we're going to move it along Y. Let's call it H1. Okay? H1 doesn't exist yet, and that's why it's turning up red. Okay? Because I haven't put in parameters. Let's go put in parameters. H1, that's going to be the height that I'm moving it, or the distance. And let's call that, let's see, the radius was 5. So let's call that like, how about 30 centimeters? Okay. Now when we go back to copy, now H1 is no longer red because it recognizes it now. Okay. And then if I say build all, then you can see that it copied it. See that? Okay. Now you have to be careful sometimes in CompSol because CompSol has its own variables. Like if I would have labeled this H, that could cause some problems later on because I think CompSol uses H for something else. So anyways, I call it H1. And I think that's a pretty unique name that maybe CompSol doesn't use. Okay, so I did that. So now let's do a rectangle. Okay, so let's go to sketch. Now we're going to sketch a rectangle. okay? And we could just do this right here, okay? And build selected. And now, as you can see here, it made that right there. So I made a circle, then I copied it, and then I made a rectangle, okay? So now what I'm going to do is, let's see. Let's go to geometry. Well, I'm looking for my... Oh, here it goes. Let's do a union. Yeah. So remember before in COMSOL 3, it was off to the side on the tab. Here, it's up here. So it does union, intersection, difference. Same thing that we did before. So when we do our union, it adds it right here, and our union objects are going to appear here. So I'm going to click on this one, right? That's the copy. I'm clicking on that one. That's rectangle 1, and I'll click on this one, and this was C1. Okay, and click interior. Am I going to keep these interior boundaries? I'm going to say no. If I wanted to, I could. And what that means is that these interior boundaries, it could keep them or erase them. Okay, sometimes you want to keep them because sometimes you guys are going to create objects, and inside of that object, I don't know what this is going to be yet, but let's just say someone wants this boundary to be here. It could still be a boundary where things could pass through, but maybe they want that to be a certain pressure or maybe a certain voltage, right? Something. They would want that boundary to be there so they could then label it something, you know, assign some physics there. But since we're not going to do that, we're going to say not to keep interior boundaries, and then we're going to build selected. So now it's all solid. All the little lines are gone. So we can't define certain boundaries in there as certain things any longer. Okay, now let's do some copy stuff. Okay, so let's go to transforms. We're going to do an array. Okay, so here's the array size. And now I don't remember you know, all the little numbers here, but fortunately we have our parameters. So we can use that. So let's say we want array size, let's say X, we want 4, and let's say the size we want in the Y direction is 2. Let's say the displacement we want for X. Well, we know this is 2 radius, so let's say we want it to be 3 times radius. And for Y, we know this right here is some distance h. So we're going to do, I don't know, h plus 3 times radius. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like. Oh, thank you. H1. Here we go. Thanks for catching that. Oops, I forgot. We had to select this. This was empty. Okay, so there we go. Zoom extents, and now you can see what we have here. So from this corner point, from here to this corner point right there, that is 3 times radius. So it's 3 of these right here. So 1, 2, 3. And from here, this point to that point is the height plus 3 radiuses, or 3 radii, plural. Okay, let's try another one. Let's do a mirror, okay, and then that will appear next. See where the mirror appeared, right here. We're going to select everything. So we're going to click all this. Or you could do, there's a select all here somewhere. See this right here? Select all, or Control A. So I select all, they all appear here, all those things. Okay. The point of reflection is going to be, let's say it's right here about 0.7. So let's say that. And then this is the normal vector to the line of reflection. So if we wanted to reflect about the y-axis, then that's fine right here, I think. Let's see. So let's build that. Wait, what happened to it? Oh, I forgot to keep. Okay. Yeah, see? This is now at 0.9. Okay, so let's 1.6. Ah, come on. Okay, now it's too far away. But okay, but fine. The point is well taken. All right, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make the holes for this right here. And so what I'll do is let's go to sketch. Let's make a rectangle around the whole thing, like this. Okay, and then let's do some Boolean with this. So let's do a difference. And it has two boxes here. Here's the stuff we're adding. Here's the stuff we're subtracting. So remember, in COMSOL 3, we had to actually say plus and minus. Okay, here we just add objects. So I'm going to select things. So I'm going to go to select objects right here. And, oh, wait a minute. I'm going to do this kind of, I'm sorry, not select all. Let's do select box. So let's do a select box. I'm going to put, oh, no, wait a minute. Wait. This is what I want to be in, I'm going to add that. I'm going to subtract these things. So now I turn this one on, and now I'm going to subtract these other ones. So I'm going to select all of these. They're going to go in there, and then select all these over here. Select that again, and select that. Okay, there. So now all of those are going to be subtracted from the gray box. Okay? And then build all. Okay, so you see that? So now those have holes. So sort of like what we wanted to do. The next thing to do is, so now let's try using that and then extruding it to 3D like we did in version 3. So how you do that is you go back out, you go to home, and you add a 3D component this time. Remember, last time we did a 2D. Now that we're going to do a 3D. And now it's a whole new thing, right? So this was our 2D geometry that we made. We did a circle, we copied, made a rectangle, we unioned it, we did an array, mirrored it, rectangled it, and did a difference. And followed all that stuff to make that geometry. That's already done. Now we're going to do something in 3D. Okay? So what we do first is we want to add a work plane. So I did a right click on this to do a work plane. If I didn't want to do a right click on it, then I could do a work plane in the ribbon above. Okay, so here's a work plane, and let's say I want my work plane to be, XY plane is good. Okay. We're going to get into these kind of things later, but you can make different kind of work planes on different surfaces, which is really nice. Okay. So the type of thing that we're going to do here is we do our work plane. The distance is fine. Objects. Okay, now let's go to our geometry. one thing I'm missing here. Hold on a second. Work plane distance. Here we go. Okay, so once we have this, we can then make certain shapes. Wait, I don't want to do that kind. I want to do a different kind. Actually, that'll be fine. So let's do like just a regular shape here. So for this, let's do radius, since that's one of our parameters we can use. Okay, and one thing I can do is when I go to geometry, I can extrude into 3D, right? Sorry, there I can extrude it a certain distance, and again that's in meters. So let's extrude it like a fraction of the radius. So let's say we're going to extrude it like 0.5 times the radius. Okay, so you see that? So that's what I just extruded it to. So very similar to how we did it in version 3. But let's also try this. Let's try, another thing we can do is this. So we can actually take like, okay, so we have this one structure, but we could take this structure and then draw like a little shape that it follows, right? And so this whole thing will be like some type of weird tube. Let's try to do that. And that's called sweeping. Okay, so so first I have my work plane object right here. And then I think I need to do another work plane. So I'm just looking for the work plane right here. Yeah, sometimes it's hard for me to go back and forth between the two, but yeah. Okay, here goes work plane. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Let me try this instead. Let me go to add another component in 3D. Okay. Then from this component, I'm going to add a work plane, and on this work plane right here, I'm going to put this work plane in. I think I want YZ for this. Yeah, well, I want YZ for this. And then for this, I'm going to make my shape. Okay, so for the shapes I'm going to have here, we're going to go to Sketch, and going to make some shapes here. So let's start off at 0, 0. So click here, then click here, then right click ends it. Then let's do quadratic. Left click. And then here's like some center point. I left click. And then this point right here is going to be my, dang it, sorry. Let me do it over again. So left click, and then another left click, then right click. Okay, that draws that. Then I can go from here, another polygon. I could do a left click. It doesn't have to be orthogonal. I could go off some other directions like this. And then right click to terminate that. And then I could end up going right here. So left click, and right click, and then end with a straight one. So left click, right click. Okay, yours doesn't have to follow that exactly, but it's some kind of shape that is going to trace out. Okay, and it looks like this. Okay, so and everything I did is indicated right here. Okay, so now when I go to this guy right here, I can see all of I can see my shape right here, and I should have two things. I should have my work plane, and I should also have where's my other? Oh, I may have to do my another work plane on my circle again. So let me do that real quick. Okay, I'm going to make another circle at 0, 0. Okay. Okay, now you see what I did? So do you see this circle that I made on, I think that was my YZ plane, and then this shape I made is on my XY plane. You guys see that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this circle right here and then have it trace along this shape to make a pipe, or some type of object like that. Okay, so how you do that is you go to geometry and you go to I believe it's in no, here it goes, sweep. Okay, so you go through sweep, and then the face to sweep is you want to click this to appear here. That's one. And then the edge to follow, you click this on, which turns that one off, and then you click on your things you want to use to follow. So click on all those. I made a few of them, right? And then you build selected. Okay, so then it looks like that. Some kind of weird looking pipe. I lost somebody, right? Okay, so let me. Okay, yeah. So the sweet part is right here. You see that? Let me do it. You guys see that? So you have your extrude, revolve, and your sweep. It's also there if you do your right click. Okay, so you can do the ribbon way or the right click. Okay. And the nice thing about this is that you can go back and you can change things like for example, I can change the radius of this to 0.1. and build all. Yeah, so I changed the radius. Now it's a little thinner pipe, smaller radius. And again, this could be a blood vessel. It could be some tubing for some HVAC system. It could be some microfluidic channel. Just a variety of things. It could be a hook for, I don't know, for something, right? But that's where you define your physics later on. Okay, and we'll do a lot more of this. What's another thing I want to mention before this? Oh, another thing that we can do too is this thing called revolve. So we did extrude, we did sweep. They also have revolve as well. And revolve is like if you want to build like a torus. It's very similar to what we just done with this, but actually revolve is a step down from this. This is most complicated right here. Oh, I could have also done in 3D. This line right here was all drawn in a 2D plane, but I could have done it, continue that into another plane at different angles. But for a torus, what you would do, you would draw your circle, right? You would find your vector that you want to rotate around. Let's say it's out here, and then what it would do, then it would create like your I don't know how to draw that best. It would create this shape, this sort of like torus shape as it rotates around, and you can choose the angle that you want to do that with. Do I have enough time for that? So let's say we want to do this. Let's do so let's add a 3D component, and then from here let's add a work plane. Okay, and then from here let's make a circle. So I'll sketch a circle out. Okay, and then let's go to was it in transformations? Where was that at? We have to go back to higher order geometry. Yeah, let's do a revolve. Right. So here's we're going to revolve around this axis right here. So what you have to do, this thing is already selected, so that's why you have this WP1 right there. What we want to do is, let's say instead of 360, a full rotation, let's do a 270, 3/4 of the way around. We want to do axis type in 3D. And then let's say the point on the revolution axis, okay, so let's say we want to point a little further away. Let's get our bearings right. So here's the XYZ. So I think what we want to do is go out in Z a little bit. So let's go out in Z by, how about like, I don't know, 0.5, something like that. And then that moves this out. So let's zoom out a little bit. Now it tells you where your axis point is. So it's going to revolve around this axis right here. You see that? Oh, wait a minute. I think this is in the wrong direction. I think I want it, I'm sorry. I think I want it in the X direction. Yeah. Yeah, I think I want it around this way. I think that's what the direction's gonna go. Okay, so once I have that, then I say build all, and now it builds this for me. So you see how I did that? And remember, it only did 270, and that was it. Okay. Cool. Okay, so that's geometry in both of them. I don't think 3 has this ability to do that kind of thing, but definitely 5 does, which is really nice. But also this too, a lot of people have been using other more sophisticated CAD tools that will output to like, was it DXF or some other type of format? You can import those types of other kind of formats into COMSOL. Okay, so different tools have different ways of making geometries, and so if you have one that you're used to, or you have some geometry already that you've gotten off the web, or you like making in your other tool, you can easily import that into COMSOL, and we'll cover that next time. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, cool. All right.